This is State Circle.
And joining us for this week's Annapolis Face-Off are Delegate Eckert, a Republican from the Eastern Shore, and Delegate Roger Manno, a Democrat from Montgomery County. Thanks very much to both of you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Both houses have now passed a bill that would require retailers to give their employees shift breaks. Delegate Manno, why is this needed?
Well, you know, for 4 years now we've had this bill in, Jeff, and we've listened to the concerns of the business community, but also to the workers that work in the retail sector. And what we found is that there is an increased number of worker comp claims, decreased levels of productivity when workers don't get adequate breaks. And the Healthy Retail Employee Act provides those kind of breaks, and it makes good sense. Most of the groups that opposed it in years 1, 2, and 3 now have removed their opposition, and I think it's a good day for Maryland.
Delegate Eckert, what's the downside of adequate breaks?
Adequate breaks, I think, are left up to the employer and the employee because it's that relationship that needs to be established. There needs to be flexibility, and I think you get better flexibility when you don't have a state mandate that says what should be done and should not be done, and also builds in our right of public action. I think that is, again, overreaching into business, and business should be left to create the environment that they need to establish. We have a lot of competition right now. Jobs are something that everybody wants to create, but if you don't have business, you're not going to have jobs.
Why, Delegate Manno, is it just retailers?
Jeff, we've gone through a whole panoply of different businesses, and what we found is that the retail sector is a sector that most needs to sort of harmonize what many of our Maryland businesses already do. It sort of codifies what many of the retailers do right now. These workers are at increased risk because many of them are on their feet for 6 or 8 or 12 hours at a time. We've seen all kinds of data on some of the occupational health injuries that occur when workers don't take breaks, and most of those occurred in the retail sector, and that's why we targeted them. I would agree with much of what Delegate Eckert has said, that businesses need flexibility, and as I mentioned before, many of our Maryland businesses do this right now. And the good news is that unlike many other states that don't have this legislation, and 20 of them do, when you walk into a Maryland retail establishment, instead of seeing tired workers, some of whom are in pain, you're going to see workers with smiling faces that are much more productive. So I think that's a good thing for Maryland.
Who's covered, who's exempt from this?
There are a variety of exemptions. As I mentioned before, we worked with the business sector, the retailers, to try to narrowly target this bill to businesses that either don't provide these kind of breaks or that for one reason or another simply cannot. For example, there's a hardship exemption if one worker is the safety worker in a large warehouse, for example, and he or she is the only person that can operate some kind of a safety mechanism. That worker would not be able to take a break because he or she is so critical to the operation of that workplace that it would be a hardship on the employer. There are many other exemptions, as Delegate Eckert mentioned before. 50 workers or more it applies to, and it also applies to smaller establishments where there are 4 workers that work a length of time where, because of the nature of that work, one of those workers could not be able to take a break without interfering with the normal operation of the workplace, and that is what we're concerned with here.
And I still think, though, it's an imposition on business to go ahead and do this. I haven't really talked to a business where this becomes an issue. So who are we really targeting this legislation to? I think we need to be very, very careful and create a climate that fosters business, not a climate that penalizes business and attacks business for what they are not doing without really furthering studying this issue. We have a number of situations where we've had opposition from retailers because they have a number of different businesses, and yet collectively they would fall under this. And if you have employees who call in sick and are out for multiple reasons, you can't provide what you need to provide. You also have the flexibility where employees may want to work a longer shift their choosing, and this would not allow for that. And I think that's a very significant point about the flexibility.
Before we go, if I may, Delegate Manno, you mentioned that this has failed in previous sessions. A question for either or both: what's different this year?
I just would like to answer Delegate Eckert's concerns. The Maryland retailers actually support this legislation this year. As I mentioned before, it's much more narrowly tailored. There are many carve-outs. There are exemptions to protect businesses that either already do this or for one reason or another cannot do this without interfering with the orderly and productive maintenance of the workplace, and that's what we're trying to do here.
I haven't seen all of that information, and the chambers have been against it. The retailers that I've heard from and other small businesses are not supportive.
All right, delegates, we're going to leave it there. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.